Good morning. Question, do you feel guilty? Well, we all feel guilty, but do you feel guilty when participating in and even just thinking about self-care? You know, do you worry that everybody else is going to be taken care of first, or you don't have time to really do it? That's what we're going to be talking about today. Welcome. I'm Ann Ferguson, and this is Leaning In with Ann Live. And it's a walk and talk that I do on weekday mornings. We talk about whatever's come to my mind. This subject has been changed throughout the morning. It ended up turning into self-care and how to do that. So this is an inspired whatever thing from Spirit to me as I've asked, said, what do we need to talk about today? So I am an author. I'm a mom. I'm a brand new grandma. Grandbaby number 5 was born on Saturday. Let's see, what else am I? I'm an ADDer. I'm a creator. I am all sorts of things. What are you? And do you even know? Because part of the knowing is self-care. Can you state what you are, who you are, pretty easily? I am a daughter of God, and that used to be very surfacey. I am a daughter of God. And now it's like he's my daddy. That's fun. All right, we're going to talk about self-care for a minute. I was working with a coach, and I was having a really hard time getting up and going to the gym. Like, I don't know why I was blocked, but I wanted to get healthy, and I just couldn't make myself get up and going. So I was working with a coach, and we discovered that I had some programs, some subconscious things. My father, some of you know, who was narcissistic, spent a lot of time in his bedroom on an exercise bike. And he would diet all the time, to the point that one time he had Bell's palsy because he had dieted so much. And it was always like this self-consuming thing. Now, I was a dancer, so I danced professionally. And so being physical was a thing that I loved. But in my older years, when I had a family, I attached me working out with this neglect and unhealthiness of my dad. What? So crazy. Anyway, this coach said something about how would it feel to take care of yourself without guilt? I went, what? She goes, no, I can hear that you take care of yourself. But I also hear that there's this element of guilt that you carry about taking care of yourself. And I went, oh my word, that is true. She said, what's that about? And I went, I am so not sure. I figured it out. If I felt guilty, it meant I still cared and was aware of my children. See, my dad took care of himself, if you will. Not really, because it was unhealthy. And he had no guilt. That is true. He had no awareness of anything that was going on in our lives. And I attached to it's not okay as an adult to take care of myself without guilt. The other thing is, I think it's cultural, right? As moms, as dads. Maybe not so much dads. I think dads do a better job on some levels. On other levels, I think they're worse. But I put this phrase in. I have permission. Ooh, that was a big deal. I had to have permission because it felt like I was going against something bigger than me. I could take care of myself, but there was guilt. Always. And it was guilt like, I just have to do this. And then everybody else has to like sit back while I do this. It's like I had to generate a crisis in order to have permission to take care of myself. That was a little jacked up. So I have permission to take care of myself without guilt. I started to say it all the time. At night before I'd go to bed, I have permission to take care of myself without guilt. I would do it in the morning. I'd look at myself in the mirror. I have permission to take care of myself without guilt. Then I went to the store. I was out at the mall. I was by myself. Everybody was taken care of. For some reason, I was by myself. I walked into Gap, and there were some new shirts And I went, oh, I need some new shirts. I wonder if this will fit me. Now, this is a big deal. I don't shop for clothing almost ever, maybe once every 6 months. I'm not a big shopper. I am little. I'm 5'2", and I have to have petite sizes. And in regular stores, don't know if you know this, but like Target and all the real stores, they don't have petites. So it's really hard for me to find clothes that fit. So I just don't. So Gap, usually the shoulders of a Gap shirt are this much too tall on me. But I decided, we'll try it. So I grabbed some shirts, go in, and oh my gosh, they fit me. Like, it was the weirdest thing. They actually fit. They fit me. I'm like, oh man, I need like 5 of these. So I got all these different colors, and I made sure I had the right size, and I got excited, and then the guilt happened. And I went, oh, I actually don't need these. I don't need these. The kids need socks. The kids need this. The kids need that. And I went to go put them back. And the phrase, I have permission to take care of myself without guilt, came through my mind. And I went, what? And now is, am I going to choose to take care of myself without guilt? I choose to take care of myself without guilt. So I picked the shirts back up, and then I saw the sign, $5 a piece. There was a major sale on these shirts. It was only $20 that I was almost willing to not spend because somebody else might need something and I needed to have the money for them, instead of realizing that I literally had no shirts to work out in. Oh, it was a big lesson for me, because I remember going, wait a minute, as I'm sitting there paying my $20, I'm like, I have permission. I have permission to take care of myself without guilt. Now, this is the reason why this is significant, and I mean really significant. It's significant because I, 6 months later, had breast cancer. And learning how and giving myself permission to take care of myself without guilt was huge, because we had to get some things like a juicer and go to an Amish market to get organic things. And prior to that, that would have been extravagant and not necessary. I can just make do. I was really, really, really good with the pioneer mentality of I will make do with what I have. What is it? Something, use it up or do without. Yeah, that was me, fully ingrained in that. And so I had to shift that around and say, it's okay. It's totally okay for me to take care of myself without guilt. Totally okay. That was a big deal. So then I said, I choose not to feel bad about organic meals. I choose not to feel bad about going to the gym. I unfortunately had to have a health crisis. It's like, here's the cancer card. You get to take care of yourself. Everybody will say, well, now is the time. You need to take care of yourself. It's true. I had a card. I had a pass. The reality is I may not have needed the pass had I been willing to take care of myself without guilt prior to that, right? That can look like a whole lot of things. That can look like going in and actually taking a bath to get your head kind of cleared from the day. Let me tell you what happens when you take care of yourself without guilt. You show up in a much bigger way for the people that are with you. The people that you need to love all over, you are not depleted because you are taking care of yourself without guilt. Now, there are some people who are obligers. Now, obligers really, really, really love to help other people soar. Like, it gives them air. And it feels morally wrong to put themselves first before others. And this is a really interesting thing, because that people pleasing, if you will, that helping, that supporting is a superpower. It's an absolute superpower. And they say yes and yes and yes. And they can make themselves do all sorts of things because somebody is depending on them. So this can sit really wrong unless you realize that if you can say taking care of myself without guilt is helping them. it's supporting those people that I love to take care of myself without guilt, because I become more. So what I would love for you obligers to think of is you're in a video game. Yeah, maybe Donkey Kong or something like that. I know, I'm old school, totally old school. You're working as a team and you've got not enough lives. You're kind of depleted. You go into the cave, your whoever it is who's working on your team, they're out there fighting the dragon. And you go in because you got to get some more power. Power up, and then you can go and man, boom, you can take everything out and you can do what you need to do. So if you need to, in your brain, say, I'm going to go video game this thing, I'm going to go power up so I can come out with power, then that's what you do. That it's so that you can support everybody else, that you take care of yourself without guilt. This can be just a little thing. For me, my brain needs to be engaged. I'm a questioner. I need to learn and know things. So part of my taking care of myself without guilt is taking the time to just read without all the things that I need to do without guilt. I'm not so good at that. I used to be. I am not so good at that anymore. I feel actually selfish when I read. Isn't that interesting? Because when I read and I find out something new, I usually share it, either with you or the people that I'm mentoring. So I think there might be a bully in my ear about reading and about not taking care of myself. That's an interesting thought. I'm going to take this a little bit further though, y'all. We're going to get serious. And that is when there's abuse around. A lot of times somebody who is engaged in emotionally abusive behaviors, they will make you wrong for taking care of yourself. How you know is because if you put up a boundary, like you're saying, I am going to go take 15 minutes to go do some breath work. So I need everybody to just be okay for about 15 minutes and I'll be back. If there is someone now in charge of the kids for 15 minutes and it's like so heavy and they can't believe you would do this and they need this and you're like running off and all of that, you're engaged in a boundary crossing. It is totally okay for you to claim 15 minutes out of a day. It's totally okay for you to claim a bath. And the hard thing is when somebody who is actually self-absorbed, it makes it so much harder for you to take care of yourself. Like the wires get all crossed about it. Makes you feel like you're them. And you want to prove to them, this is the big deal. When you've got an abusive situation, you're always in a state of proving to them that you are not who they say you are. So you will sacrifice your own time to prove that you do show up for them over and over and over. That's rough. That's rough. The only way out of that is to actually hold your boundaries. So one of two things happen. Either they get so angry that they run off, which is no fun, maybe for the day, maybe for a moment, or they start to learn what's acceptable. So I think a lot of times we treat people in the way that we want to be treated, and then we want them to treat us back. So I used to think this, like there's this scale, and I give and I give and I give and I give to you, and now the scale's unbalanced, and you're supposed to see that, so you're supposed to give and give and give and give back to me. And that's partnership. That's how we should work. I give and I give and I give, and you give and you give and you give. That would be fantastic work. And then I realized that actually it doesn't work that way. I give and I give and I give, and when the scale is unbalanced, I must take the time to receive for myself. And sometimes the person who I think is supposed to balance the scale can't do it. It's okay, I can receive from somebody else. Notice I did not say I can take. Taking is an interesting thing. It's like stealing from someone. That's usually what our minds do. So I don't even give to myself because I don't want to give and give and give and then give some more. So I give I give and I give. And when I'm depleted, I'm willing, here's the big thing, I'm willing to not make myself wrong. I am not wrong for needing something, even if no one else agrees with me. I am not wrong. And rather than proving that I can support them, the key here is to prove that when you take care of yourself, you show up better for them. When you go and power up in the cave of the video game, you come out with more power. A lot of times we have people who are trained because of how we treat ourselves. They believe that this is how it goes. There is a situation that I heard of the other day where there's a man who at work will jump in and cover for people all day long. He jumps in, he jumps in, he jumps in, he jumps in. Well, he actually wanted and needed to leave early. And he didn't communicate that. And everybody always thinks that he's just always okay because he's always helping everybody. So he felt very, very hurt that no one did for him what he did for others. And the reality is what he needed to do is say, hey, I'm not going to make myself wrong for this. I need this. And because of that, I'm letting all of you know that I am leaving at this time. And to communicate that first thing in the morning so that everybody could adjust and know that he wasn't available is taking care of himself. Communication is the first step of taking care of yourself without guilt. Now, you can say, I am in need of this. Do you have what you need to support me? And if not, I'm going to go find the support that I need because I know I'm going to come out with more power for you. When you're in an abusive situation, setting up that boundary, they will get mad at you, like really, really angry. And all that does is go, that's interesting. That me actually taking care of myself is a problem. Fascinating. Right? It's so hard. I had to do this just recently. Part of me taking care of myself. This is the hardest level of this. I have chosen and said in my mind, I will not be emotionally abused. I will set up a boundary that feels good and safe to me. And when somebody crosses that, I will give them a chance maybe. If not, I will just go, wow, that's interesting. They crossed that boundary. And then I have to set another one. And I have to set another one. And if their anger and pissosity, rage, or the blame, the shame, retaliation comes at me, I go, oh, interesting. I'm actually in an abusive relationship right now. The most loving thing for me to do is to cut off all contact with somebody who is emotionally abusive. Now, in this situation, I had said multiple times, hey, I know you're angry. Can we talk about this? And it was no. It was all these blasted text messages, hateful things, getting on social media, and then even threatening suicide. If anybody is threatening suicide and they're angry at you, that's emotional abuse. You still need to respond to it. But there is something that emotional abusers do when they start to threaten suicide, because you have no choice but to respond with love and concern and emotional support. Otherwise, you're really, really a bad guy. So keeping them safe, making sure that there's no medication for them to take and no weapons and all of that. Maybe even calling a suicide prevention hotline. Or if they threaten, you have the evidence that you need for the police to come. And if they talk their way out of it and say, I wasn't actually going to kill myself, you know you've got an emotional abuser on your hands. That is so not okay. You can look it up. When an emotional abuser threatens suicide, you can look it up so that you can see. I'm not saying don't be responsive to the threat. Absolutely. Take every threat seriously. But be very aware of what it looks like. There was a tantrum going on, and I wasn't responding to the tantrum and giving in to a boundary line. And this person started threatening suicide. And it went on for several hours in the evening. And like I'm talking while I was sleeping in the night. And what I was going to feel like when they weren't here anymore, that is a threat. And it's not the same as the cry for help, right? So safety is part of self-care. Now that was an extreme case, but you can say, what feels really good and nurturing, supportive of me right now? And you can take care of yourself and say, this is what I need. And I'm just going to power up and I'm going to come back out. There's a level that you can do. The first thing is I have permission to take care of myself without guilt. I have permission to take care of myself without guilt. The next level is I enjoy. I will tell you, when I put on those shirts and I found out it was $20, I enjoy taking care of myself without guilt. This walk and talk literally is me taking care of myself. For 2 months, I didn't walk. Oh my gosh, could I feel it? I just did not feel as healthy. I didn't have as much energy. All sorts of things. I now know, because I've tested it, that for me to walk every day is taking care of myself. So what about you? What are you doing to go, I really need to do that to take care of myself? I give you a challenge this week. Say to yourself, I have permission to take care of myself without guilt, or I choose to take care of myself without guilt. The next level of that is I enjoy. I very literally enjoy these walks. I enjoy it. When I was a young mom, I used to get up at 6 a.m. and I would walk a couple miles in the morning when my husband was still there. So I felt like I had had just a little bit of me. I talked to God, listened to scriptures or something, and then I'd come home and I was ready for my kids. I'd powered up. So I know that kids can get in the way. I know that a lot of little humans and even big humans don't participate in your self-care, and that can be really frustrating. They don't ever have to agree with it for it to be really, really important that you do it, right? Step into the self-care. Step into, I have permission to take care of myself without guilt. And then what happens is after you go, I choose it, and you start choosing, then you start enjoying, and then you go, I do self-care. No guilt here. Because what happens is when I come home from this little moment, it's about an hour that I walk, sometimes 2. When I come home from this, I feel ready to take care of everybody else. You have permission to let go when something's abusive. Now, what I hear most often is people say, yeah, but what am I going to do? What's happened is that your body is actually set to a frequency of this is as good as it gets. So anything else that's above that, you actually will bring yourself back down. It's really an abusive cycle that you end up doing to yourself as well. And so having permission to let go is huge. What I would love for you to know is that the enemy, who is messing with all of this, is telling you you're all alone and you're not going to make it. That you can't let go. And it's mean. It's mean. I was told I was so mean. I needed to apologize for all the mean things I'd said. And really the mean things I said was, I'm not going to rescue anymore. And this is a boundary line that I've put up. That was mean. But you are never alone. I know this by absolute 100% fact that I can say, Father, it's enough. I don't know what to do. Will you help me? And He will help you let go. It'll still be painful and there will still be grief. That is true. I've been grieving for the past 3 weeks over the situation that I've had. I've had to cut somebody off. And there's grief involved, but there's not abuse involved. So either way, I'm going to feel something, but I know that I can process through my grief. And then I'm actually functional and ready for other people because I'm not always managing the abusiveness. It's like if you were a burn victim and you keep going into the fire so that somebody doesn't feel bad that they burned you. It doesn't make sense, does it? But to say you have permission to be in the hospital and heal, that's an important skill. Father in heaven will always bless you with that. This is why, ladies specifically, you are not just a daughter of God. You are a precious, precious daughter. And he's never intended for you to be that dishonored and disrespected. It's not what you promised him. So I want you to picture him as a great big old burly man with a shotgun on the front porch. You pull up in a car with a boyfriend who's not been kind to you and kind of took advantage of some things, and you run in crying, and Heavenly Father's like, stay in the house, I'm going to talk to my son. Ladies, I want you to know that that's actually who Heavenly Father is to you. He's very protective, and he loves you. You've got to let him be protective. I know of someone who's in an abusive situation, and she actually doesn't want to tell her dad because her dad will protect. Your Father in heaven does the same thing. Gentlemen, I want you to hear me. This is not all women. You are also at times emotionally abused, manipulated, made to feel like you're nothing. Self-care is to be getting some help. For men, I have found the best thing is to find a men's group where there's other men that rally around that help you, who are sane, who are powerful. I do have somebody I would love to refer you to if you would like a men's group. That is it, my friends. Thank you for being here. I will see you another day. Bye-bye.